Okay, let me share my screen. Perfect. Let's go right back to the top of that, actually. Excellent. Can everybody see that?
Yep, I can.
Thanks, Richard. Okay, so welcome everyone to Pre-Consensus. This is, I think, meeting 3 in our countdown to publishing for the ballot for comment scope, which leads beyond to our agenda. So after we sort of go through this and do some of the updates, we've got some change requests that have been tabled for this meeting. There's also some that we're leaving to the March 7th consensus meeting, which is the sex assigned at birth. And what's been put on this agenda to talk about today are the allergy intolerance change requests, or at least these ones in particular. And Landon will go through those, and also to bring up the HumanName proposals that we agreed to work through, I think a month or so back, around the time that we went through name to use, where we looked at putting must support on a part of the HumanName element, and agreed that that meant that we really needed to go through and clarify which of the parts of HumanName were of relevance from AU Core, which were the ones we had to support. So they're here for us to look at today. And I also want to talk through ballot preparation. And we went through some proposals last week around the scope refinement and also putting the content of the mappings into the AU Core for some ballot preparation with call-outs for where we still needed feedback. And I wanted to bring that back to this group if we've got time to show that, and ask for if there was anything else we thought would be good to adjust that content for the ballot for comment scope, noting, we've got resources, so there's only so much change we can achieve, and then talk about our next meeting. So beyond welcome, the update I wanted to talk about is from the Connectathon. And I wanted to confirm for people that when I showed this in the last week, we still had on days 2 and 3, it said to be confirmed. And it also had tickets still available. At this stage, we have confirmed this. It is all CBD. And if you go to the Eventbrite link, you'll be able to see where that is. Now, if you are intending to come to any of these sessions, but you've clicked on the links in the emails and you've seen that they're sold out, what you need to do is you need to email events@hl7.com.au and identify the sessions that you want to go on the wait list for. And then you'll enter the wait list, and as tickets become available, they will send you a ticket or contact you about that. Also for the work groups, we are in the same building, so only sign up for one work group, even if you're interested in attending both, because you can just move between rooms. I think those were the updates I wanted to provide about the Connectathon. Are there any questions about that at this stage?
Is the symposium much limited in size, or is the symposium a much bigger thing?
The symposium is bigger, but it's still limited. So there's only a certain number of tickets on sale. So I don't know if it's currently sold out. And if it is, you should email events@hl7.com.au. Now, the symposium, which was, I think we originally talked about it being more of a half day, is going to go for the full day. It starts first in the morning, and towards the afternoon, even when the symposium ends, it seems like there's going to be an offering of a session. Now, this is not set in stone yet, of where there will be a FHIR 101 run in the afternoon for those people who are coming in new to the FHIR space. And I guess that counts as symposium. All right, let's pop on to the change request. So at this point, I'll hand over to you, Landon, to walk through the allergy intolerance content.
Awesome. Thanks, Danielle. We have a packed agenda today, so I'll try to get through this pretty quickly. And the next 3 slides are just context for the juror tickets. And I guess the intention is just to draw attention to these tickets. We're probably not going to put this through for a vote before ballot for comment due to time constraints, but we do encourage juror feedback or comments during ballot for comment or feedback during that time. So for this ticket, we have 2 tickets in regards to must support. So highlighted here in this juror item, we have so the proposed ones for the tickets that we have are to remove must support for type, category, and substance, and I've highlighted those in yellow here. And as you can note, these are not in US Core or IPA, and only type is supported in IPS. So AU Core is somewhat more restrictive here. So thanks for Danielle. Next slide, please. So this is the vendor support for those same items. And as you can see here, substance is not used by any vendor or organization that's provided feedback thus far. And it also looks like Oracle is the only one that's currently using type and category. So not all vendors look to be supporting these items currently. Thanks, Danielle. Next slide. And this ticket is for another juror ticket, which is in relation to allergy intolerance code. And here in dark yellow highlights the reference sets that vendors are not currently supporting, which are medicinal product pack, container trade product pack, and adverse reaction agent. And that were just for context of the vendor feedback. Thanks, Danielle. We'll get to the tickets on the next slide, please. So these are the 2 requests for must support to be removed. So the first one is for substance, and this changes, I guess it aims to reduce implementation burdens. And notes from the ticket, support for this element is outside AU Core scope. It's not included in AU CDI. There's a lack of vendor support and is not must support for US Core, IPA, or IPS. And for the must support for type and category, the notes from the ticket are limited vendor support and is not must support in US Core or IPA. So these are the 2 tickets in relation to must support proposals to remove must support. Might throw out to any comments or questions for these 2 tickets, and there's a few.
And I raised my hand because I just wanted to clarify for people, and when we're saying this is removal of must support of substance, it's not removal of must support on saying this is the substance someone is allergic to. There are 2 substance elements in the allergy intolerance resource. This is a different one. It's underneath allergyintolerance.manifestation.substance. And that element is meant to be a further refinement. So essentially when you send, if you were to send both, you are sending 2 values. You're not just sending the substance, but you're also then sending a much more specific substance value. And that's what the proposal to remove must support from is, for that second value that is the refinement.
Great, thanks.
Could you show that to us could you display AU Core's profile as it currently exists at some stage?
I see we also have, I think, Barty with your hand up.
Yes, hi. Sorry, I haven't been able to update the conference page because I'm having some problems with my login. But from a hospital perspective, a category is important because a clinical, so I work with the clinical system, and the clinical system sends out all these allergy information to a diet system, to a med system, where the clinical system should be in a position to make a decision where that particular allergy should be sent out to. Is it relevant for the diet system or is it relevant for the med system? So we deem it as important.
Okay, thanks, Barty. And you were suggesting that for your system that you have some support information that you could fill out the draft vendor support page, but the Confluence just isn't working for you.
Yeah.
Did you want to maybe email that through to myself or Landon, and we can update the page on your behalf?
Sure, I'll do that.
Fantastic. And the same for anyone on the line who is finding that they're having difficulties filling out the pages because Confluence just isn't working for them for some reason. Please email myself or one of the other co-chairs, and we will make sure we put that content on there. So I think what we'll do is we'll come back to you, Barty, at the category and type discussion. And I think I just want to come back to what Richard was asking for and about that first change request on allergy intolerance. And what it's doing is it's proposing to remove this. And I will highlight for everyone that the AU-CDI mapping for substance is mapped to this value. That's where that comes through. That's the code there where we would send the substance or the adverse reaction agent.
I think the statement refers to that substance as manifestation.substance rather than reaction.substance.
Yep, my bad.
Yes, it does actually on the slide. And look at if I go to snapshot.
Yeah, it's actually my jury card, but it's the confusion that came from AU-CDI because it uses manifestation. But anyway.
So if we go down, this more specific one that is being proposed to be removed is...
It's actually up.
Oh, whoops.
It's reaction.substance.
Yes. In FHIR, manifestation is a sibling to substance, not a parent.
Correct. Yeah.
But in AU-CDI, the term manifestation is used as a parent of substance.
Correct. Or
So the use case.
Substance. So these are reaction is actually events. So each reaction event is an occurrence of the reaction group where you're able to state the substance, the exact substance that you reacted to and how you reacted to it is in the manifestation. That's how this reaction group or occurrence, multiple occurrences is supposed to be worked. It's per event. And basically there is no way, I won't go complicate things. We're just interested in recording the allergy, the substance at the allergy level, not the substance at the reaction level. At this time, anyway.
You could argue that the AU-CDI manifestation substance, naturally maps to adverse reaction.code. But,
that's what we've done.
Yes, exactly.
And so, Heather, I think you have a comment on this.
Yeah, look, the AU-CDI representation is trying to do a simple version of this. We're not trying to get into systems creating specific events, reaction events at the moment, but the intent is for it to potentially grow towards this. So the representation of the substance and the manifestation having multiple occurrences so that each occurrence could represent, any number of events, or just multiple manifestations per event, depending on what you need. But we're not trying to take it all back to just sort of root level and everything's all at one level. What we want is for that AU-CDI to be mapped to this so it can grow towards this. It's not trying to be in conflict with this model that's here at any, there's no intent for that at all. So that we are, my intent would be that we would eventually have specific reaction events that we could record a potentially a class of penicillin, for example, as the propensity at the top level, and then be able to say it's this particular brand of penicillin or another generic type of penicillin that becomes part of the reaction event, and we get more specific, as you said, Danielle. Does that make sense? It's not intended to conflict with this, it's intended to complement it. It's how to represent it in AUCDI and not get too technical, but by no means is it meant to try to make you guys do backflips to make it fit. I would like to see it grow exactly towards what this model is.
Thanks, Heather, and I think that does clarify. And one of the reasons this has been proposed for removal is it doesn't match our release 1 scope. It is the further roadmap for this element, and it doesn't belong as part of that simplistic, here are our starting set of minimum elements.
Exactly. And I agree with that totally, but I just want to make sure that we're not trying to conflict with that really simple model in AUCDI release 1. I would anticipate it will grow towards this shape. So whenever you are doing any of your technical representations, don't try and compromise this representation. Just take it as a small subset of these data elements as best we can. And I think that's where we need to have that kind of just clinical technical discussion to make sure that that is reflected.
Okay, so if we take this as the proposal to remove must support from reaction.substance, noting that the AUCDI substance remains supported, it's at that macro level, not at this, which is the future roadmap. Are there any further comments or questions on this before we would move to a vote? Okay, I'll ask if someone's happy to move to remove must support from reaction.substance.
Am I allowed to move it?
You are, Heath.
I move.
Thank you. And I think, Liam, right, you raised your hand. Is that because you're happy to second, or is that because you had a comment or question?
No, I was just going to move, but now I'll jump into the second position.
Okay, great. So in that case, if there are no further comments on that, I'll ask for a vote. We don't have an electronic poll prepared. So what I'll ask is anyone intending to abstain from this, please raise your hand now. Okay, I'm seeing 4 hands raised. Now 5. I'll just pause for a bit. Okay, we have a total of 8 hands abstaining. If you can put those down now. Thank you. And I'll ask you now to raise your hand if you want to vote negatively. That is to keep this in AHUCOR. Okay, that's 0. And the rest are taken as affirmative then. That motion passes. We will go ahead with removing must support from reaction.substance. And I'll put this back to the next one, Landon.
Perfect. Thank you very much. If we go to the next slide now.
Just Christian, you don't want to go through type and category?
Oh, I sort of mentioned it before. I'll quickly go through it again. It's just basically, so I think the reasons that were listed for this, for not being must support, were primarily just vendor support and not being in US core or IPA. But the
bring up this profile again.
I think I might have had a fair bit more to say about this topic, but in a nutshell, it is certainly the systems I've seen is quite difficult for it's quite often just a list of medications. There is no user entry of a category or type quite often in these user interfaces. So take type, for example, there is no actual data entry of this is an allergy. versus this is an intolerance. And similarly with category, you don't normally specify so that something is you may specify that it is a medication or a non-drug, but it's then quite difficult to say, well, within this group of non-drugs, that it is a food, environment, or biological. So you need to start to further process the item that is actually selected from the user interface to try and determine whether it is food, environmental, and biological. And I personally see that is quite difficult and probably unsafe to try and infer these types and categories from a code that was actually, or just a medication or something like bee sting, to say what those categories and types are without an actual user entering them directly. Hence my proposal.
Thanks, Heath. Are there comments or questions on that? Heather, you've raised your hand.
I have. I'd endorse that. As a clinician who always looked at these historically in systems and thought I'm totally inadequate because I cannot work out if this is truly an allergy from a physiological mechanism point of view, or if it's a side effect, or if it's an intolerance. It was a great relief when I started to talk to other clinicians and look at other systems and know that everyone felt in the same boat. I've subsequently confirmed that with many allergists who believe that most clinicians are not capable of actually doing this. So from a clinical point of view, I would recommend that this historical data element really should become increasingly redundant. Definitely not must support in here for sure. And I think increasingly as we start to code our substances, we will be able to define the categories or derive the categories from the coding probably much more accurately. I don't think it's a must support for now, and it may be useful for some kind of screen representations and things like that. But I would certainly endorse what Heath's been saying. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. Are there further comments or questions? It sounds like someone's about to ask something. No?
That was me. I was just thinking, like, for an interoperable solution, how does this really work for a system to differentiate between what's relevant for their functionality? As I was mentioning before, that a system is talking to two different systems. One is diet and one is meds. And unless they have a category defined, like each system should be aware of whatever is relevant to them rather than bothering about what's the environmental or what's the medical, the drugs allergy a patient is having. So I guess I'm not sure how many are there.
So this isn't stopping you from actually using the field. You can, if your system is capturing the fact that this is a food allergy or this is a medication allergy somehow, you can still populate it. We're just saying we're not going to require that from everyone.
No, I understand that. It's just I'm trying to think now how other systems might be doing the similar thing. Like if it was a must support, so I guess every system that's AU core compliant will have this information, and that flow of information between different systems becomes much more easier.
Yeah, and as Heather confirmed my suspicion, it's very difficult for us to actually determine that based on the way that data is being currently entered into systems, which is really just a list of medications, potentially a list of other types of allergies. So we can't even determine whether an allergy such as a bee sting is a food, environmental, or biological. All we know is that it is non-drug.
I think a thing here is there's a bunch of systems that don't know how to answer this question, and it would seem to be And because there's so many systems that don't know how to populate this field and don't know what to do with it if it shows up, we leave it as, we don't make it must support for everybody that wants to be part of Core. But there'll be certain subsystems which will want to have their own agreements to say, well, we are going to require you to use this. And but that would be something for a particular sub area of Australian healthcare rather than something for everybody.
And I'd like to say that I think we can do better than what we currently do. And so I'm not disagreeing with you, Barty. I think we should try and do better, but it's not now. And in another discussion, I've kind of advocated that it would be really nice to have a value set of food allergies, a value set for environmental allergies, a value set for biological allergies, and a value set for medication allergies. That way we can use terminology servers to actually say, is this code a member of these value sets, and then be able to derive that category. So that's, I wish we could do better, but currently, as far as R1, I don't think it's safe for us to make it must support because we don't do it very well now.
Yeah, well, we've got a way forward, which is that people put up proposals for things to arrange for the Australian health IT system to support. And we could say things like such and such a data element. It's proposed that we all move to a point where we can make that part of R3. And then there could be a program of agreement across the country for people to try and make a certain thing available for R3 of AU Core. But that winds up being a program of work, not just something we pop into a particular specification.
And probably should be driven by AU CDI more so than by TDG.
Okay, thanks,
Understood.
Heath.
Thank you.
Sorry, Barty.
No, I was just saying thank you. I guess I understand, and this is exactly what he said, that different value sets and all. We ended up going with that solution, but I can understand it's not possible for all the systems to hit terminology server, do that thing, and have that information even available. I understand that. Thank you.
Thanks, Barty. Heather, do you have a comment?
Just very quickly, I think I'm going to stick my neck out and say that probably SNOMED does most of the substances reasonably well, including the environment biological ones. But where we're really missing in systems is there is no standardized representation of food in any way. And if we need to connect through to the kitchen systems and so on, it's a major gap in our terminologies at the moment, and it's really should be, because it is actually literally causing anaphylactic reactions within hospitals when someone's given food that they're allergic to, because the kitchen system doesn't connect to the allergy system and so on. So I'm certainly aware of that. It is a major gap and we have to address it at some time, but that's just what I wanted to flag. Food is a real issue. Thanks.
Thanks, Heather. So we've had some discussions and comments around the proposal, which is to remove must support from allergy intolerance type and allergy intolerance category, as in removing them from the first release of AU Core, and they are therefore not considered part of the minimum requirements when we're exchanging allergy intolerance information for all systems across use cases. And I'll just ask, are there any further comments or questions, or can we move to a vote? Okay, I think we can. I'll ask, is someone happy to motion that we remove must support from type and category?
I'm happy to do that, Danielle. Michael.
Thanks, Michael. Is someone happy to second that? Heather, you've raised your hand to second.
Yep.
Thank you. So now we'll move to a vote. Again, I'll ask those people who wish to abstain, please raise your hand now. Okay, we have 8 abstentions. Please put your hand down. No, sorry, it went to 9. It went to 9. Please put your hand down. But we got to 9 abstentions. And I'll ask those people who want to vote negatively to raise your hand now. Okay, we have 1 vote for negative. And so the rest are taken as approved, and this motion is passed we will be removing must support from type and category. Thanks, everyone. So what we'll do is we'll go back, and at this point I'll ask Landon, can you move through the raising this change proposal relatively quickly, and we'll hold this over to the next meeting, which was our plan anyway, to the 7th of March.
Okay, I'll just do a quick overview. I doubt we'll get to a vote on this one. Anyway, Daniel covered additional bindings in a working group earlier this week, and I believe there's going to be some further engagement and discussions around it. But fundamentally, this ticket is to create a new value set for medicinal that removes, as per the vendor feedback we saw in a previous slide, the medicinal product pack, the container trade product pack, and the adverse reaction agent, because they're the reference sets that vendors are not currently supporting. So I guess this is to provide a more, I don't know, conformant version. So what this ticket actually proposes is to have an additional binding with the purpose of candidate, and to change the original binding of indicator and hypersensitivity to intolerance and substance to extensible. So the extensible would allow it to not have any limitations when specifying a code. And if we have a new additional value set which removes those mentioned reference sets, if we set it to a purpose of candidate, this could possibly be a conformance candidate for the future. But yeah, as I mentioned, this may be subject to change based on any discussions around additional bindings and slicings discussed earlier in the week. But that's an overview of this ticket. Was there any questions or comments on this potential proposal?
So the idea is that receiving systems don't have to be enhanced to take note of these extra codes, but that, and if somebody was to send codes, they would be expected to use some of the known codes and may send these as additional codes, but couldn't expect that anybody understood them. Is that the sort of idea?
I think I'll clarify some of the FHIR structure there. So it's not proposing we change the current binding in AU, which hopefully I've got, it's saying that in allergy intolerance code, which currently has a binding to preferred, it's suggested we move that to extensible. And that is that value set are all the SNOMED values we could put together that could possibly make sense, basically. And what the additional bindings is doing is proposing a more refined set than the really wide set, because the wide set will also include some duplicates. It'll include both international SNOMED drug codes, but it also includes the AMT codes. So the extensible set says use anything sensible from SNOMED. The proposed additional binding is a tailored set of values from these specific reference sets, and the proposal is to include it as candidate. And what that means when you add an additional binding as a candidate is you're highlighting that to say, we want you to be aware of this value set. We think this is a candidate to replace the current binding, that we think it's better. And it may eventually either replace this wider value set, or it may, I guess, remain candidate while we're still talking through it through multiple releases, or eventually go away. Heath, you've raised your hand.
So we're other than the additional binding, we're just strengthening the current binding strength.
Yes.
So the existing binding will still include the propensity to adverse reaction.
Correct.
Subset. even though most of the systems don't use it?
Yes.
Yeah, correct.
So the additional binding is basically saying this is actually our preferred one.
Yes.
Okay.
And a candidate to work through and eventually replace the much wider one that allows, again, people to do either of those things.
Ah, okay. So it's sort of putting a stake in the ground to say in future we will probably move it, restrict it
Yes,
back to this.
that's
Okay.
right.
All right. Thank you.
That's correct. That's the theory. Richard, you have a question.
I think that Extensible's got a thing that people might have missed, is that if there is a code in that set, you have to, that covers what you want to say, you have to use it. So people who don't have code, don't have a coded system for this, have only text, they'll have to implement a system where they put in some high level SNOMED code that includes anything they could possibly put in text, and then send the real content in text.
Yes.
And I just thought that it was important that people understand that implication of making it extensible. I think it's a good idea, but I just think it's people understand that.
No, I think that's a really good call out, Richard. And I think what we'll do is leave the conversation there where we've identified what this does now, and we'll move the next set of conversation about this to the 7th of March. Brett, do you have one final comment on this?
Just could we have a think about, does it affect AU base, and should it?
At this stage, I don't think it does, unless you want to propose that. That's the value set from HL7 AU base. And I
Brett,
guess the question is, should it?
Well, I guess the thing is candidate is maybe it could be, maybe the new value set could be also a candidate in AU base. So AU base could have a preferred and candidate.
Yeah, that's what I would consider, but let's maybe take that to be AU base's problem.
Which might be more of a roadmap. If it's going to be candidate in AU core, we'd want that to live for a while, I think, before putting that in AU base. Sorry, Heath, I cut you off.
No, I was just going to say there's no current constraint at all at the AU core level. It is purely inheriting from AU base, which is preferred at the moment. So yeah, we would be taking that one step further and actually strengthening that preferred to extensible, and then adding the candidate. I agree with, let's play with this in AU core before we put it into base.
All right, so let's leave those comments there and let's move on to the other proposals. We may get to vote on these today. We might have to hold them over to the 7th of March meeting. I'll bring up, okay, so back to screen sharing. So this is about the HumanName proposals for AU core patient and AU core practitioner. Some of the background for this is that when we looked at most supporting patient name.use, which was from the gender harmony name to use proposal, that meant that we needed to look at the other parts of HumanName, and we wanted to consider if we could, in release 1 of AU core, clarify which parts of the HumanName data type are the must support parts, both for a patient and a practitioner. And we've put out the draft vendor support pages for those, and a number of people have come back with that content. And there's a proposal based on that, and also looking at the comparison with what's in US core, IPS IPA, and looking also at our requirements around the HI vendor service. To propose which parts of HumanName need to be supported. And I want us to talk about that today. If we have agreement, we can vote on that. Otherwise, we need to work through the feedback, and I'd hope that we can do that for the 7th of March, because it is something we highlighted as important before we put out the March ballot for comment snapshot. So I'll just run through some of this a little bit quickly. So if we look at what do different vendors support around patient name, There looks to be, for the people who have responded, and again, if you haven't responded, please fill out the draft vendor support pages. If you're having problems, email myself or any other co-chair. And they've indicated which of the parts of HumanName they use. And only one many records is recorded that they are supporting name period. No one has name suffix. But the other parts are supported. If we look at the IPS, US Core, and IPA, what we tend to see is that IPS supports name text, family name, given name, whereas US Core is only supporting family and given. And IPA doesn't go into that level of detail. So the proposal for AU Core taking into our local requirements is that in addition to where we've put must support on name use, that we put must support on name text and name family and name given. And what that would look like is something like this. If we had an example, those are the parts that you're considered are must support, therefore an AU Core, and something like prefix or suffix or period would not be required to be supported for AU Core, but I guess maybe set in a downstream system. Brett, I see you've raised your hand.
I just had a comment on one of these elements, if now is the time.
Yes, go for it.
Just name text. I just think it may be problematic to mark that as must support when you have systems that have name parts implemented and you have nowhere to stash that. Yeah, you could probably generate one on the way out, but receiving that and doing anything meaningful, I think, is a little tricky. And it's, yeah, but obviously as a must support, you need not pay attention to that. But effectively, I just think I'm wondering whether it's important. So I kind of more think going down the US Core pathway of just family and given is a better answer.
And that is an important question. In Australia, we've tended to have some usages that meant that we've had some kind of texting that's kind of held over in like unstructured names. And Heath, sorry, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was going to ask a kind of a related question, which is when do we use one or the other? Because of along those lines, it's like I don't think requiring systems to generate a concatenated name is problematic. But some systems might, for some types of names, might actually use a free text name. So it depends what is meant by must support, I guess, in this context.
Well, let's talk about that now. So if we have the elements, would we really be saying that it is use, family, and given that are must support, which seems to be where that implication is coming from? If you have this data, fill it out. And if you receive it, know how to continue to process your resource. And I agree that because of the nature of text, there is an implication that if you have any of the other parts of HumanName, there's an implication that you have to generate a text value.
So there's one system I'm aware of that for your usual name, for example, they use the text element instead of the first name or family name. So would we be saying in that particular case, like if we just put family name and given name as must support, that for the case of usual name, they would have to choose given or family depending on...
I think we need guidance on that.
So
explicitly. Yeah.
And that's the problem I've got with saying must support for given and family is now we've got this sort of edge case, if you like, around usual name where it's just a given name. But in other cases, you want to mandate a family name.
There's
It's
also
not as easy as we think.
cases where people just have one name, which is possible as well.
Which the general advice for that is to put it in family, but yes. Okay, and Philip, your hand is raised.
It's actually Danielle. I was just gonna say that isn't usual. I mean, I was just trying to elaborate. I'm trying to understand here. Isn't usual? Do you mean preferred?
Yes.
Because there is different mappings, but I would have thought that the inference of official, and again, it comes back to there's kind of 3 different buckets of names that we use here, which is there's official name, there's preferred name, there's Medicare name, there's a few different buckets, right? And then for some systems, they've actually got HI name. But if we're talking about official name, it shouldn't be the usual, like it's not your preferred name, it is just the name that you have as your registered official name. So like the actual use denotes which one it is, isn't, I would have thought.
And we could define must support to say that the must support on human name means that you will either be supplying text or you will need to do family or given. We can go down to that level of detail. I think that might be difficult for implementers to read through a level of complexity, but it is possible. Richard, your hand is raised.
I mean, theoretically, we could have a system which just stores family and given and doesn't know what to do with text if it comes, because it would then have to parse it and split it. But then likewise, we can have a system which just simply has text and then has to has to do the concatenation. So a system like that can receive a can receive a component name and compose it itself to put in. But then when it sends the data out to somebody or other else, it has to then decompose the string. So I think if we just go with if we just go with family and given, then there's going to be problems of people deconstructing strings to populate them nicely, whichever end it is. And if we just go with text, then there's going to be problems for people who there's going to be problems for people who only store given and family. So that seems to be a reason to say, look, you've got to support all 3 because it's the only way people can tie together.
And I'll frame this in our issue going to ballot. At the moment, only use is must support. You can ignore everything else. And I don't think that's what our position actually is. The position seems to me like we're debating between the obligations around what does it mean to require text, family and given. Can we just as a minimum just do family and given, or do we need to include text? I don't think anyone is proposing only use and text. And Danielle, your hand is up again.
Yeah, so I agree. I think you at a minimum have to have family because, to your point, and that is a practice pattern, if I only have one name, it goes in family. Text gives you the full string if you want, but use and family are the most important to indicate which name it is and what it's for. And it's a fairly standard.
Okay.
I've still got the issue with the preferred/usual in that scenario.
That's not up for table on this discussion, which is about, do we restrict the allowed set of concepts? This is about deciding which elements are must support.
No, but what I'm saying is a usual name is a first name, but you're saying family is must support.
Yes.
Yeah, so to Danielle's point earlier, if you don't have family name, sorry, if you only have one name, that should go in family name. So if we're talking about preferred name, are you saying that they don't have any? So I guess the preferred name should be mapped to a different use, would be my thought on that. Because if we're talking about use official, it depends on the use.
No, I'm talking about usual, as in the use of usual. But like if someone who's using a different gender's name as their preferred / usual name compared to their actual official name,
yeah, so
it's
at a minimum,
usually
what we're
a
saying, though,
first name that we're actually using in that usual preferred name field, and it's a single
but wouldn't you,
field in the user interface. So
yes,
are
but
we
in that
populating
instance, would
their
you,
family as well? Is that what you're kind of alluding to?
I'm
yeah, that's
not.
where I was just going to go, is if,
Sorry, go.
what I would say is, if you provide me, aren't we saying that if you provide me family name, then I must support it? But if you only send me the first name, which is their usual name I would use, we're not saying that that's must support.
That's a good point between mandatory or otherwise. We're not proposing making family mandatory. If you don't have family and you only have given, those rules on missing data apply. Though that being said, if someone is known by only one name, the guidance is to put that in family. Marvin? No, hands down.
Given that we're focusing on interoperability, does that change what we're thinking here? We do need to have a mechanism for identifying people properly, which is one of the key things I think we're trying to solve. I get Heath's point about for a UI they would store just a single name, which is what do I prefer to be called, Marv rather than Marvin, for example. And how would we represent that? Would that be another instance of the name array with just the preferred name in family, which I guess doesn't quite sound right. But I guess if we take what you're saying, Danielle, in that instance, we could just say the family name is not included in this particular point, and it's just it's just a given name that's in there, and the use would be a nickname, for example.
Yes, you could absolutely do that.
Yep. Yeah, that was what I was getting at, is given that the use is, you would only have, if all you have is the given name, which is, let's say it's Marv, then that's what you would give as the given name. You wouldn't include the family name. But if I provide the use, family name, and text, then the receiving system should be able to do something with those fields, is what we're talking about.
Thank you. Brett?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think there's any problem with having more than one name without family name. I think it's more that if you do have a family name, we want one instance of name that has family populated. So yeah, to me, it's if you support family name, you should populate at one of the names with family, and you've met the criteria of must supporting the family name. And the receiving system is an expectation you would be able to receive a family name, which I think is fair as well. But it doesn't mean every name has to have a family name. Yeah, because it doesn't. If your use is nickname, you might consider that a given name only, and therefore you don't support a family name for nickname. So you don't need to supply it. That's all.
Thanks, Brett. Heath?
I'm thinking we should go must support on given and family, but just provide some guidance for some of these specific cases, like, or very common cases like preferred names, and even like previously like maiden names and things like that as well, where the maiden name, do we just provide their surname in that particular case, and then preferred name we're going to, so as long as we provide some guidance on that and actually say, yep, these are known. It's not like we're putting 1-to-1 on family name or anything, are we? Don't think so.
No, that's not proposed.
So as long as we're saying, yep, in this particular case, you've got a single field, which is their preferred name, we would expect that to go to given name. For the case of maiden name, we would expect that to go to family name, and hence given name is, you know, you don't need to support, even though it's marked as must support. So I think that we can do this through guidance.
Okay, Landon, last comment, and I'll move on quickly then, and we'll hold over in the further discussions of this proposal to the 7th of March, because we're down to the last minutes.
Just a quick question around prefix. What is the proposal for that for must support?
Nothing. It was simply an example that to say that if we put must support on these elements, that would mean in this example, these are supported and prefix is not. Neither is suffix nor is period. And so AU Core is silent on that. That's up to downstream users or local system requirements to define if they do or do not use them and how.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll highlight very, very briefly then. I'll just move through this. No comments at this stage because we've only got 2 minutes left. I don't want to take everyone's time on a Friday. That we also have practitioner. These slides will be made available. And there is also which parts of practitioner name are supported, which is tabled. We may get through that, we might not. It's not as important as patient name to get through for the March ballot scope. I've put a proposal here that in this case, we do actually only put must support on family and given, and we make family mandatory and keep it that simple in AU Core. The JIRA is there for feedback. If you feel strongly about this in either way, please put your feedback on that JIRA proposal, and then we can go through that either on the 7th of March or at a following meeting. And I want to move forwards to ballot preparation activities. And we've kind of run out of time again to talk through this a bit more, but I'll skip forward past what do we even do in a ballot preparation. Hold that over to the next meeting, 7th and 8th, we're still applying agreed changes, though what we agreed last week around our mappings and the scope refinement is in there. You're absolutely welcome to have a look at that and provide any feedback beforehand. If there's anything you think we could fix before it goes to March ballot or any improvements we could put in, let me know via email. That would be great. And there are other things we're looking to support. In the 7th of March, we've got a number of these JIRAs that we've suggested we could move through these change requests on the 7th of March session, which includes the scheduled sex assigned at birth, but also there look to be a couple of quick wins around AU Core practitioner, AU Core organisation, AU Core immunisation, and potentially the vitals and measurements. I'll put a call out to everybody. If you think that we have a missing quick win, please email me, or this email address will get you to the AU Core co-chairs at that email address. Or if you think there's something really high priority that we need to make sure we table on the 7th of March, again, please send me an email or put that through to the aucore@hl7.com.au. I'm just going to run through some final stats and periods to confirm for everyone. So our ballot sign up is closing fast. It's the 8th of March. If you have not signed up, you need to, or you cannot participate in the ballot feedback and voting. Right now, we've got 48 voters who've signed up across 20 organisations, which is great. Keep going, everyone. Our ballot period will then open on the 11th of March and go through to the end of March for people to provide their feedback and to vote on the ballot. And then resolution goes for about 2 months after, and that's going to be the focus of our technical design group meetings, where we're going to look at resolving and dispositioning the feedback that's coming in about our improvements, things to take out, things to put in, where can we clarify, what needs to move to an R2 roadmap. And then ideally we're going to publish a snapshot that is the resolution of that ballot feedback the following month. So somewhere around the 25th of, I think that's June. And that's the overall. Now I've put here, and there's a QR code for people who haven't yet signed up. That's the sign up form. Now remember, for all balloting, you have to either be an individual HL7AU member, or you have to be the voter for an HL7AU organisation member. So if you're not sure about your membership, get involved, have a look there. And there'll be an information session on the 6th of March. So that's next week, on, I think that's Wednesday, where we'll go through how does balloting work? How do you put in your feedback? Because ballot opens the next week. Okay, so I've just highlighted on this slide those items, and a call out again to sign up as a voter, and please fill out the draft vendor support, including around HumanName for practitioner and patient, so we can resolve on the 7th of March what are systems actually supporting. Do you do text? Do you do family name? Do you do given? What are your system needs? And that's about it that I want to bring to people's attention today. We've got a few more upcoming meetings, but they should be on your calendars. All right, I'll close the meeting unless anyone has any further comments or questions. All right, thanks everyone. Appreciate your time. I'll see you next week.
Thanks, Danielle.
Thank you.
Thank you.